Hello again. We finished our Sunless Sea playthrough. I want to go through the ending screen on video just to sort of go over what happens when you end a game. And I also want to talk a little bit about why I did a recording of this game and why this game has stuck with me. I talked a little bit about it in the final video where we wrote the Song of the Z and ended our character's ambition. But I wanted to just go over a couple more things and sort of make a wrap-up video. Okay, so it didn't save. I wasn't sure what would happen. I wasn't sure if it would save the game when we ended last time. Apparently it did not. So I'll do this one more time here. Is there anything else we can sell before we end our session here? I think I pretty much sold everything. So I didn't sell my torpedo components. I want to go over what happens when you start when you end a series and when you start a new game. So I'm gonna do that I'm gonna do that here at the end of this for this video. One of the things you can do is you can pass on a weapon. This whole game I wanted to use this weapon, this Memento Mori. Not the whole game, but ever since I got it, it's a forward weapon. If I started, just in theory, if I started a new character, what's the first ship? Okay, so this thing can carry... This thing can use the forward weapon, the lamp pad class cutter. I mean... Oh, this thing can too, actually, the Forced class corvette. I kind of want to, like, pass on... Not like that, I'm not going to play, like, right now. There's no aft slot on this ship. That's okay. The aft slot is where we had the... concealed compartment, but I honestly didn't feel like that was particularly useful. I'm just thinking, like, again, I want to look at the options for starting a new character. I'm thinking that if I started a new character, could I do it as, like, I always wanted to get this ship, but I never had enough money. But you could like buy this ship at the start of the game. It has 40 hold capacity, which is, this is the ship you start with. It has the same hold capacity as the ship you start with. But it has a forward gun. So I'm going to consider that as an option. I'm going to sell this, 'cause I'm not going to pass that on to my next character. You can pass on some of your money. I'm just like selling the items I know I'm not going to pass on to my next character. Anything that sells for money. And again, I'm not going to go like overboard and like try to like min-max, go sail around and like find all the things we could do to end the game. I just want to do this one last time. And do, like I said, have some thoughts about the game. Okay, so let's retire this character. We were doing consider retirement from seafaring life. We wrote the Song of the Z. Again, we did this on the last episode. We became the prophet of the Underzee. We wrote the Song of the Z. Poets and scholars consult you. You're the summit of London's social order. You're on your lonely pinnacle. Your career is complete. So when you end the game, you have the option. So it shows you some of the legacy qualities you've done. So I've done a bunch of these. So in this session we did Book of Sharps. So all future characters now gain 25 iron. I think that was the only new one that I think I had done this session. I thought I hadn't done this one, but this is the one. It looks like where you go under into the abyss and are taken by Lady Black. So apparently I had done that. I had done the Dream of Red. I had done the Horizon Codex, but I haven't done these two. So at some point I do want to try to do this at some point. We have a Scion. You can choose 2 legacies. Okay, so here's where you get to choose legacies. So I was thinking about retaining the weapon just to try this. And then you can retain like 50% of your money. Either veils or mirrors. My veils were higher, so I guess I could retain my veils. I don't like returning or keeping an officer, because I like actually going through the officer's stories, like when you play the game. So like if you just start with an officer who's already kind of completed their story. And I would love to start with more pages, but if you don't have if you keep your chart, you don't get to explore the world, and exploring the world is how you gain all your secrets. So I think of these options, I would probably do the veils, just because I had more veils. So I'd pass on my iron and my veils, half my money, and 1 weapon, the Memento Mori. So let's do this again. I'm just going to use this as a point to talk about the game. But I'm just going to go through the process of what happens when you end. and start a new character. So you get to choose your past when you make a new character. We went through this at the beginning of the last video. I'm just gonna go through this kind of quickly. If we were going to do this, maybe we'd make a Veils character. Actually, a Pages character. Pages are good because you get secrets. Increases the speed which you convert fragments to. I feel like getting more pages. Plus, being a poet is interesting enough in the world of Sunless. I feel like that gives you. It just feels correct. You know, educated and articulate. You seek sensation at sea. How lucky you had a legacy to spend. Your long vanished father was a rich patron to send. Yeah, I like getting the Pages skill up because. Like I said, Pages increases the speed at which you get secrets, so like that seems like a more interesting thing to do. Gives you a sly navigator, and you get to choose an ambition. So we've done this. This is the one we just did. I know I've done this. This is where you retire with a mansion. I know I've done this because I saw it. Okay, here's the private kingdom option. But you can't choose it now. I'll just choose your father's bones. But I don't think I would ever do any of these on this playthrough, so it doesn't really matter. Last time we were a citizen, we were Citizen Duncan. This time we're a scholar. Let's go ahead and say we probably just. Are we gonna be a noble lord? Like I said, last time we were a citizen. We were popular among those like Algerian. We were a soldier in a war. I guess we could play a female character if we ever played it again. My lady, captain, madame. More he captain's chooses than you might expect. Sure, why not? Welcome aboard, madame it is. Which the female portraits do I think looks like a cool scholar. This one she's writing. This one she's wearing like a cap. Again, I'm not going to play this playthrough right now. I'm just kind of setting up while the game is fresh in my mind. I kind of want to think about what I would do if I did play again. I don't know. None of these are like super grabbing me. We could do this one. You need to name your character. What would be a fitting name for a female poet of the Unterzee? Something like Emily Frost, something like Frosty. I don't know. I don't know. Emily. Your father's bones, a cold trail. Mr. John Huffman. Yeah, I'm not gonna go through everything. The point of this video wasn't to play through a whole new game. I just wanted to look at some of the stuff in the journal. So this is what we ended up doing at the end of the last session. So the last game we retired with the Song of the Sea. So now our new character has this. I don't think it does anything. There's this advice for captains thing. You can sell it after you're done with it. I'm not going to go through all those things. I'm not going to dismiss the tutorials. I might actually, next time I play this game, I might actually want to read those tutorials. But again, okay, anyways, so what did I want to talk about? So why did I think this is a cool game? It's very different than other games. Again, it's like, if you think of story-based games, you think of like adventure games, like point-and-click adventures, where they're very linear, because like you're basically reading a book, or like you're a character participating. There are limited options usually, and sometimes like the BioWare games, there'll be some like branching story decisions, like you become an evil character, and you get like people in the world like you, and you get events that reflect the story of the fact that you're evil, or you go good, like light side, dark side. And the games sort of progress on a tree-based structure, but it's all predetermined, right? Like all those choices and endings are sort of built into the structure of the game. And they're not necessarily like reflective of the game itself. Like the gameplay elements could be completely different from the story decisions you make. This game is also a story game, but it doesn't use that same structure. It uses basically just an open map, right? Like, and there's some randomness to how the map is shuffled. So there's actually some replayability. There's some replayability. Again, like there's different endings to play through, different roles to play as your character. But a lot of the game is determined by the mechanics of the game. Whereas like in a lot of like story games, the mechanics and the story are separate. Like a point and click adventure, the mechanics are like picking up items and combining them and doing and talking to people. But the game itself is limited by the pace of the story. Like you go through chapters and levels, um, and things like that. And there are like other games have other conventions, right? Like you think of a game like Quake or Doom, like a shooter, that's a popular style of game, like called a shooter. But like usually they're pretty straightforward, right? Like you start at the beginning of one level, you shoot guys, you progress through the level. There might be keys and doors and things to like do in the level, and then you get to the end and you go on to the next level. Not just shooters, but like the kind of game that was really popular during like the older console generations, like PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Xbox, like the earlier generations, like they call them like action adventure games. Usually they were like a third person camera, but like Tomb Raider style games, like the Darksiders games. I mean, there were so many of those games back then. But they were they were very standard, right? Like most games were that type of game where like there's levels, there's some gameplay mechanics that you do on the levels. Like maybe you get experience points and there's a skill tree, or maybe you just play through the game as your character and you get different weapons or something. Um, but it's very linear. Like the fun of those games is getting good at playing the levels, but you don't have a lot of decisions to make. You just go from one level to the next based on what the game developer built. It's like it's very restrictive. Whereas a game like this, it is restrictive, but the restrictions are the gameplay mechanics themselves. Like in this game, you have fuel, supplies, crew, terror, hull strength, and the way you play the game feels very constricted at first, right? Because your ship is slow, you can't carry much fuel and supplies, you don't have very many crew. And it's those gameplay elements that you interact with while you're playing the game, but they're also what control the progression of the game. Like they're intertwined. The mechanics and the progression of the game are intertwined, such that it feels more natural. Like when you learn to interact with the mechanics of the game, you also become better at exploring and finding new things to do in the game. So like your enjoyment and your play session of the game itself are tied to the mechanics. They're not tied to like an artificial level system or um, other ways that games use to have you progress through the game. And there is story in this game, and there is some time-based things, like some things change in the world as quote-unquote time passes, which I think is cool. But it's not like a hard limit. Like you think of a game like it was popular last year, like Clair Obscur, which won a lot of awards at the Game of the Year awards and stuff like that. It does open up a bit in like the second and third half of the game, but even then, and especially at the beginning of the game, it's very linear. Like you're reading the story dialogue options, you're watching the cutscenes, you're going from point A to point B in each level as you go through them. And when you complete one level, you move on to the next one. Again, the map does open up a little bit at the end of the game, so like it's not purely linear, but it's not the same as this game where like it kind of like goes Clear Obscure kind of goes from like completely linear to like okay, now you can fly around, so it's not linear anymore. Or I guess no, first it opens up to you can walk around a little bit. There's a couple different options you can choose from where you go and what order you do them. And then eventually you get the ability to fly, which opens up the whole map. But at that point you've been to a lot of the places already, so it's more like you're revisiting to do things that were too hard for you earlier, or of course you're exploring the new areas that you weren't able to get to before. Whereas in this game, like in theory, you could go anywhere at the very beginning of the game, as long as you could get as long as you could get the right amount of fuel and supplies and terror and crew to get from point A to point B. Like you can basically do anything you want to do in whatever order you want to do them in. So like the way you play the game is up to you basically, which I think is a really cool way to build games. And I think I was thinking like what other games does that remind me of? Like I was thinking of one of my other favorite games called The Outer Wilds, which is like another indie game that came out probably 5 or 6 or 7 years ago at this point. I think it was pre-2020. Anyways, it's like a puzzle basically. It's a world puzzle where like like you start the game on a planet in a solar system with different planets, and you have a certain amount of time before like the whole solar system explodes, like the sun explodes basically. And every time the solar system explodes, you restart your character back at the beginning again. It's like a Groundhog Day loop, kind of like a time loop. And you play through the game. And if you actually know what to do, you can actually beat the game in like 15 minutes or something. But obviously, like when you start the game with no knowledge, you die really quickly. You may not even leave the first planet before you die, before the solar system explodes the first time you play. And then like you go to one planet, you explore it, but then like you're halfway through exploring something interesting, and then the solar system explodes. You're like, oh dang it! If only I had had more time. So then you try to get back there faster the next time. And again, it's like the mechanics of the game are directly tied to the progression of the game and the exploration of the game. Like everything is intertwined, right? Like there's no artificial. I mean, I guess the time loop itself is artificial, but like it's just a way to force you to re-engage with the mechanics. It's not like you know you've gone from level A to level B, like you did the first world and the second world. Like it's all just one world. You're not limited, other than the fact that like the world explodes after a certain amount of time. Anyways, there's other games like the Dark Souls games. Again, are very like you can kind of explore anywhere you can get to, but you're limited by your knowledge and to somewhat your character's strength. But again, it feels very natural. Like it doesn't feel artificial or gamey in a way that some other games, like I was talking about, are more traditional. Like you go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. It's like the world's there for you to explore, but you're restricted from exploration by the mechanics of the game itself. Like you're too weak, you're too slow, you don't have enough knowledge, those kind of things. Um, and I think other games that I've really enjoyed more in the past like 5, 10 years, like the survival genre became really popular, like with the Ark series of games. And of course, there's a million different games that spin off from there, from where Ark started. Sort of, I mean, Ark wasn't the first game that had survival mechanics, but it sort of popularized the genre. And again, those games, it's like you start the game and you interact with the mechanics of the game, and it is the mechanics that prevent you that like restrict you, and you're gated by the mechanics themselves. Like you start with no shelter, no resources. You're hungry, you're cold, you're like night falls and bad things happen at night. So like you have to build shelter and build tools and like, but it's the mechanics of the games themselves that are restricting you. It's not like an artificial barrier. And so as you get it just feel like you're always thinking like in your head like, well, how do I interact with these mechanics to make myself better at the game? Whereas other games, again, it's like you just play them to experience them, but you're not like always thinking in the back of your head like of how to use as you learn more about the game mechanics, how to use them better and to like yeah, that information of like being good at the game doesn't like you can be really good at Doom, for example, but like the best person in the world at Doom and like an average player at Doom, like they can still get through all the levels, no problem. It doesn't really matter. Like sure, you could do like a speed run and try to like beat some artificial timer, but like the game doesn't really reward knowledge and understanding in the same way. It, again, like passive story-based games too, like point-and-click adventures. Like the point of the game is to experience the story, like watching a movie or reading a book, more than it is. And they usually have some mechanics or puzzles and stuff, but like those are sort of like sitting aside the story. They're not really combined with the story usually, which I think I've learned over time that I don't enjoy those older type of games that were more popular back then compared to games like I've been describing that are more mechanics based. Um, and even games that are like Metroidvanias, like they still have a lot of artificial. Like I do enjoy playing a Metroidvania now and then, but again, the progression is a little more artificial. Like you have to go to get like the grappling hook first before you can get to the higher ceilings or whatever. I mean, like or the slide to slide under narrow, crawl spaces that you couldn't slide under before. These are just arbitrary examples. I'm not talking about any particular game, but like your knowledge of the game doesn't help you unless you have the slide. Like you literally cannot get under these little passageways until you get to this one item. And it does feel interesting. I think it's a good reuse of game. One of my pet peeves of the traditional game development model was you spend all these time building these worlds, these assets for the environments, for the enemies, for the story. you spend all the time building these things, and then the players just rush through them like linearly, and then like all that work you spent building those assets in those environments is like kind of wasted. Like they've already brushed through that one level and they're on to the next one. So you have to keep building more and more content. And I think that's why those traditional games have seen hard times in the industry. Like they kept getting more and more expensive to build all these like super visually detailed levels and characters and animations and special and particle effects, you know, and visual effects and things like that, and cutscenes. But like the player just runs through those so quickly that like it's such a waste of time in a sense. Like games that you can build a world or a sandbox or whatever they call it, like that the player can engage with repeatedly. That's one of the benefits of the Metroidvania. Like you build a level, and then the player spends the first time they run through it and they're restricted, but then they come back to the same level and they have another item they can explore a little more. And they come back again to the same level and they get to play that same level again with another exploration item that they can explore a little more. So you get to reuse, the player gets to experience the assets in the gameplay that you built without having to like just churn out more and more content. And games like Grand Theft Auto, of course, are like sort of the epitome. The open world sandboxy style games are like the epitome of that, where like you can players can spend, you know, like weeks and hours and years of game time just doing the same kind of things in the same area or in the same sandbox. And it's very efficient in a way from a game developer perspective, because you don't have to create a million assets to keep the player engaged for that period of time. Like they can re-engage with these same assets over time. So again, that's sort of one of my pet peeves of old school traditional game development. Um, that I'm happy to see games like this and other things, other ways to re-engage gamers with the assets you've already built and like extend the period of gameplay as long as it's fun. Obviously, if it's tedious, then it's not a very fun experience. But um, yeah, like my least favorite games are like the side-scrolling genre, like the classic beat 'em up arcade games like Final Fight, the TMNT beat 'em up games. Like I understand the fun of like local co-op and just a bunch of people sitting around a TV or a video console and just playing games together. And those games facilitate that experience, but I think the games themselves are lacking. At least most of them. I mean, like Castle Crashers was a pretty popular example back in the like the 360, PS3 era. But again, not my favorite style game. Anyways, so that was a lot to talk about. I just wanted to sort of talk about the game that I enjoy here. I think I would put this in my top 10 of games personally, just because it's so unique and like the memories of playing it are so distinct. I would put up there with Outer Wilds, again, one of my other favorites. Other games like that really clicked with me in the past. The Dark Souls genre. I can't really say which one is the best Dark Souls or Dark Souls spin-off or Souls-like, but those type of games scratch the similar itch where like careful engagement with the mechanics feels rewarding as a player, and you get to experience the worlds in a unique and satisfying way. And so yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching my series of videos, if anyone did, of this Sunless Sea playthrough, and I hope it entices you to play it yourself at some point. It got me thinking about playing the other games in the series. Like I said, I talked about a little bit about the sequel, the Sunless Sky games. Then there's some other games that the studio, Fail Better Games, has released that I'm interested in trying out as well again. This has renewed my interest to engage with their products. There's one called Mask of Rose, which I think is more of a story romantic simulator game, which isn't traditionally my favorite, but because it's by this studio, I do want to check it out just to see what their spin on that genre is. See if it holds up. And but yeah, I mean this will be a fun thing to do at some point for me. Like I'll re-engage with this character that I started here, Emily the poet, and try to do one of the other objectives that I wasn't able to do, like founding a colony in Acefall, or going through the end of the Frostfound story where you sail off the world in different areas. But yeah, I'll definitely look forward to that. Again, not right away, but maybe sometime in a year or two when the memories of playing the game aren't as fresh in my mind. Come back again and check it out again. But I think it'll be fun. I think this is just such a good game to experience every now and then that I'm looking forward to it, I would say. And I hope you will too. Again, thanks for watching my series, and take care.